I remember one day being in a restaurant. My father punched me in the face. I was about my daughter's age. I was 7. There's blood running down my face. The people were there. I remember seeing people in the room.
The reactions.
Yeah, and I can clearly remember that people were sort of trying to show how to stop a nosebleed. One family were like putting in, all the tips and advice, and someone was giving me ice. And my mother hadn't been there. It was on a holiday. My mother hadn't been there. We got back to the apartment, and I could see them both looking like, I've gone a bit far this time. And I could see them looking to one another, and it was the collusion. And then they both sort of laughed and went, oh, well, you did say you'd never had a nosebleed before, because boys at school were beginning to have nosebleeds about that age. And it was as if they'd given me like a puppy for Christmas. And I can remember being so confused, because I'm thinking, this really isn't right.
Right. And
I'd seen people's reactions in the restaurant, and I don't know if people had seen what had happened, but they'd seen the after effect. And I knew it was so wrong, but yet I'm told that I was bad, I'd made him do it. And then this well, you did say you'd never had a nosebleed, got your chocolate bar. It's the collusion. That's the worst part for me. So, and I think, the resonance of this story, the event from that I treated on Friday, definitely triggered. It was the collusion as well in that example.
Hello and welcome to another episode of For Soul's Sake, a conversation in which I bring you the best in wellness, the best in coaching, the best in spirituality, a candid conversation, an opportunity for growth, for transformation, all these buzzwords. You ready? You excited? Today we've got an amazing guest. Her name, Annalie Howling, a successful performance coach and trauma therapist. From her corporate job to becoming a renowned coach with a massive social media following, Annalie's path was fueled by a transformative coaching session that changed her life. Annalie's passion for performance coaching led her to work with elite performers worldwide, both in the world of sport and corporate athletes at the top of their profession. She held an invaluable role in supporting individuals' mindset, energy management, and focus amidst the demanding challenges they face. Beyond her coaching expertise, Annalie's deep understanding of trauma and overcoming shame has touched countless lives. As she shares her insights on trauma work and the power of positive affirmations, you'll be inspired by her mission to help clients live their most fulfilling lives. Not only does she impact lives through her professional endeavors, but she also extends her wisdom to social media and charity, providing free advice to those in need. As a devoted single mother, Annalie's trauma work has positively influenced her parenting approach. I'm sure we'll receive heartfelt advice for other parents seeking to balance career and family while prioritizing mental and physical well-being. Don't miss this uplifting conversation with Annalie Howling, a compassionate coach and a force for positive change in the lives of many. Annalie, incredible. This is phenomenal. I mean, I want to get stuck in already. Performance for athletes. How did you get into that?
So that came about from working in corporate. And then there's someone that I do a lot of work with who's wonderful, a great friend of mine, and he's a functional med specialist. So a lot of the athletes that he was doing work with on the sort of functional mobility side, physiological, if you like. Mm-hmm. And then he and I were doing some corporate stuff together, and he's like, actually, this would be a really great fit because, as with all people, but particularly athletes, you can get very anxious and things are very difficult for you, and you can often feel quite alone, even though you may have a whole team around you. It's often, so say like golf in particular, you're the person that's ultimately out there on your own doing the job. You've got your caddy with you as well. It's great. But fundamentally, you can have a whole team and you're also maybe supporting that team as well as family and other people. And that's a lot of pressure. It's a huge amount of pressure. The travel is very unforgiving as well. And so that was sort of the first introduction into sports there. But I also do a lot of career-ending injury. So I've worked with rugby players, footballers, England footballers.
I've had a career-ending injury happen. And
some have had career-ending injury, and then some have had sort of maybe an injury, and then they're going to go back. And what's interesting about that is if you think about, let's say football. Mm-hmm. So there's a football shirt in the room today with us. So
I'm not going to tell you what team it is, but it's not one that I appreciate.
Very triggering. We're very triggered.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine that you're, Premier League player, top of your game, and England perhaps as well, and you have an injury, which happens, because you're going in, say, to a tackle or whatever it is, and you have to take risks. To be an elite athlete, an elite performer in anything, you have to take risks.
Yeah.
You've got to be right in there. You get applauded for that. You get celebrated. So let's just say you've had an injury, like you've been out for a couple of months, you've done all the rehab, There is always someone ready to take your place.
Oh, yeah.
There's more than one person. And maybe the crowd and the club are like, oh, this person's really fitting in. Da, da, da. So then you go back and you've had these few months out, on the bench and everything else. Are you mentally, when you find yourself in this position again, maybe another tackle or something like that, going to go in with the same velocity?
Wow.
Or not? Because you know what it might mean. I've worked with a racing driver, female racing driver. She's incredible. To become good at racing, you have to fail safely. She has crashed into walls at, hundreds of miles an hour. So, and been okay. But again, she's going to approach that, same part of a racetrack. And are you going to do it in the same way? So there can be these blocks, very understandably, in athletes' minds where you need to be risky, you need to be hungry, you need to be quite aggressive. And then sometimes you can find yourself going, holding yourself back.
Wow. I mean, why it's interesting for me is because I'm transposing this into my life. I think naturally when you hear all these kind of concepts, well, maybe it's just me because I'm so self-absorbed, but I'm transposing this into my life. I'm a performer. I like to share musical mantra. And I mean, some of this creeps into my mind. Like, I need to protect my voice. I need to protect my image. And, there's someone waiting in the scenes. And I mean, do you have to kind of coach people to think that they're the best, and that even though they've had this crippling injury, that they need to still remember that, no, you can be at your best still? And how do you navigate ego is what I'm asking, because I think that's something that's important that props up.
I love what you've said. Thank you for sharing that as well. And I'm sort of working on this hypothesis. So this is athletes, corporate, us talking now, thinking about myself. And I think this is like my own sort of hypothesis. When you become very successful, it can make you more conservative. Like if you think about, I don't know, a few years ago just when you're younger, I was in corporate, had a corporate career, and you're hungry, because there's someone to chase as well, right? So you're in your 20s and you're like, I want that person's job, or I want that job next. And so you take more risks. Also, I had a rental flat and lived with the girls, and, you lived on cheesy puffs and it didn't matter. But like, great diet, cheesy puffs and rosé. Yeah. But, it didn't matter. And you just kind of got through. But now I'm a single parent. I have a mortgage to pay. I've got quite a big house. Like I've got bills, I've got, a business, I've got people that I need to pay for, my team and things like that. And so if I make a mistake, that's really big implications. So what that means is my behavior, I might be more inclined to try and hold on. So this is what I mean about success making you conservative. You were saying about saving your voice and about making sure, so it's a very different mentality to the hunting, the chasing, the I want that, I'm going after that, risky, taking chunks. Right. And so that's the sort of mindset shift, is to reactivate those parts. And that's by making you understand that you're safe. You're perfectly safe, and that you are therefore able to flex and pulse into these high performance sprints, call it whatever you will. If that shows up in, aggressive play in sports, if that shows up in me or you saying or doing something really courageous and maybe deemed more risky, or perhaps you singing, whatever it might be, finding that balance between always knowing that you're safe. But that's the inner critic territory in there going, oh, don't, because you could lose all of this. Because like I said before, you don't have as much to lose.
You're risk averse.
Yeah.
Wow. I love your clarity of thought. Like it's clear that you're sharing this, communicating this on a daily basis, and that clarity of thought is coming through really nicely. You mentioned motherhood, single motherhood at that. What are the values that you really wish to kind of pass on to a child?
It's a lovely question. So Amber,
as a coach.
Amber, my daughter. So the thing that I'm the most sort of conscious about, and don't get me wrong, she will be in therapy at some point going, my mother did this, like no one gets through without any baggage, so I'm doing the best that I can with what I have, but equally, I've no doubt at some stage I will have done some things she needs unwinding. But the thing I try and always make sure with Amber is that she never feels shame, that she never has shame, that she never thinks she is bad, or so for example, like naughty, I've never said she's naughty, never once.
Really?
No, I've never told her she's naughty.
Is that a thing?
I've said I did maybe the things she did. I always say to her, if she if I do have to intervene, and she knows at the times, I mean she's 7 now, so it's easy for me to kind of communicate it, but even when she was younger, it's the only thing I will ever raise my voice about, or the only thing I'm ever going to tell you off for, is if I think you could get hurt. And I'm not trying to spoil your fun, I'm trying to keep you safe, it's mummy's job. And if I do have to sit her down and we need to talk about something, I always make sure there's not a second that I don't love you, not 1 second. There's not a second that you're not safe, and that I don't love you. However, that thing, the thing, not her, that you did upset me or was dangerous because. So, and then we design in whatever it might be. I mean, this isn't super namaste all the time. Like sometimes there is shouting when she's running by a pool for the millionth time and it's slippery. Like, of course. And I say to her, I'm only doing it if it's dangerous. Like, do need you to listen. But the thing that I don't want her to have is shame. And I remember being on one of my EMDR training courses.
What's that?
So EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprogramming, which is something that I use for trauma work. It's a technique. And I was on one of these courses and they used the example of the naughty step, which I didn't do. No judgment, I just didn't do it. And but I know plenty of people that do. One of my friends used to take a square of carpet, like a carpet tile, and put it down wherever they were in restaurants, and that was the in
restaurants. Yes. Far out.
3 girls. That's what she did. So fine. But the concept of the naughty step is a good way of explaining sort of shame and how not to leave your children with shame. And again, I didn't do it, but so the concept of the naughty step, if anyone saw the Super Nanny program, was that child's putting sticky fingers on the wall and you're like, don't do that. And they do it again. You go, don't do that. Right, okay, fine. Final time. And you take them to the naughty step, whatever it is. And again, I wouldn't have used naughty, but there we go, time out. And you say to them, look, you're here because you keep putting sticky fingers on mummy's wallpaper and I asked you not to. I am going to come back in 1 minute. And when I come back, we'll talk about it. And then that'll be it. So, and then you go. So the child knows why they're there, how long they're there, but critically that you're coming back because they're a child and it's attachment and they're nervous. And what was amazing about that, so that's the shame cycle closes. Then you come back, why are you here? Sorry, mummy, or whatever, fine, hug, done, complete. That's the shame cycle is gone. There is no shame left. And when I was on this course, all these grown-ups, the amount of people there that said, I was sent to my room, I didn't know if it was safe to come down. I didn't know if I was allowed back. Go to your room, right? Don't really know why, like what exact thing. You don't know if you're allowed back downstairs. You can't get your basic needs met. You don't know if am I going to eat again? What does this mean? Is this like the shame that you take on because it's the lack of understanding and it doesn't close. And honestly, and we're all therapists in this room training, and the amount of people that were talking about the damage it did to them. Wow. And how difficult that was, just being sent to your room. And I've spoken to lots of my friends about it, and they've all said the same, that, being sent, go to your room, and you don't really know why. Obviously, I'm naughty, I'm bad, shame language. But that doesn't close this cycle, and without that clarity. So I thought that was quite an interesting dynamic that we were taught.
Yeah. That's been really helpful because it's helping me to reprogram how I speak to my 3-year-old. And I guess one of the things that I still feel shame about is I was disciplined really early as a child. And from a young age, my parents were quite strict with me about the things I should and shouldn't do, couldn't do. And I think that's, even though I want to be a better parent than they were, for me, I think it's natural, right? You always want to be better. You want to be building upon that which you were taught or that which you were brought up within in that environment that your parents had constructed. I still feel that I don't know quite how to discipline or how to navigate communicating with my son and daughter now. And one thing I've been thinking about quite a lot is some sort of parenting coaching. That even though I get it, like there's no such thing as the perfect parent. There's no such thing as the ideal parent. But do you think that there is space for more parent coaching?
I think so. I mean, it's very emotional. It's a very emotional journey. There's dynamic that impacts you and your wife. And, there's a lot going on in that. So, yeah, I think there would be I'm sure there are probably, I haven't come across any parenting coaches, but I'm sure there are. I mean, I've done relationship systems coaching as one of the trainings that I've done, which means anything greater than 2, effectively. So it's, couples, romantic, family, corporate, thousands of people in the room, and you can use these tools and interventions on systems. So you watch systems, and family systems are really interesting. And doing, there's a lot of work on IFS now, internal family systems. And in the coaching I did, it was sort of looking at constellation work and really trying to read
constellation work.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you constellate a system.
Okay, I got
So it's a kind of like a bird's eye view, but you use the term constellations. And you get people to take on roles and kind of play it out, because there's always wisdom. There's always something that needs to be said. And so one of the big sayings from that training that we did is that the system will always reveal itself. You just have to allow allow it. And so in a family, maybe there's something that is emerging, changing dynamic. And it's changing all the time, especially when they're really little. It changes all the time. So, yeah, I think having a safe, non-judgmental place for parents would be really transformative because, to your point, did you let them cry it out? Did you do this? Were they on a routine? No, they weren't. I mean, there's so much judgment in it. And you almost feel like it's quite loaded. And so I think the thing with a good coach and with good coaching practices or support is it should be a place of absolutely no judgment, just exploration. And I think that would be really powerful.
Wow. Anyone that's a parent out there that feels that they want to learn more on this, head over to...
Yeah, come over.
Come and have a chat with Annalie. I'm sure on socials you can connect. My intuition is telling me that you are a very hardworking person. You've clearly spent a lot of time on your craft. You, excuse me. You've spent a lot of time on your craft. You're navigating being a single parent. You're coaching people at a very high performance level. And do you feel ever burnout?
Oh my God.
It's a thing, yeah?
Yeah.
Because do coaches feel burnout? Do they know how to navigate their own burnout? Like how do you...
Totally. I actually did a post a couple of weeks ago now, and it just said, you can still burn out doing what you love. And the response was like overwhelming.
I mean, that piques my interest.
Right. And I actually got connected to this wonderful lady, and I've just been on her podcast called The Burnt Creator. And it's exactly that, for creator burnout specifically. Wow. And we had some really enriching conversations there as well. But if you think about people in caring professions, teachers, nurses, doctors, you can absolutely... young parents of young children, like, you love them, but my goodness, you're teetering on burnout, almost the whole time because you're, giving. It's a very giving role. And so, yes, absolutely. And thank you for acknowledging that. I mean, my life is, I don't have help with my daughter. I do it myself. I don't have like a nanny or anything like that.
Incredible.
And thank you. Well, I want to be with her. Yeah. But the way that my day has to work is sort of get up, get her off to school, and, then try and do some bits in between, pick her up and be with her. But then more often than not, and I've tried to say to her, I need it to kind of stop for both of our sakes, 8:30 every night on a Zoom with the States or something like that. So I don't tend to have an evening, but then I get time with her. So, and then we have holiday time together, and I try and make it as flexible as possible. So, yeah, it can be very overwhelming. And then there's always life has to continue and go on, and PE kits and things need to be done. I mean, her father is still very much involved. We're very good friends and he's great. So we do co-parent very well. But yeah, she's with me the majority of the time, and it is a dance, and I do teeter. I know that I was very burnt out before Christmas, or I was very close to it coming. I had a very big burnout before I was 30, and I could feel this one was sort of teetering on the edges. And I know for me, when it's really happening, I cannot create anything. I've got like nothing, I can sort of get through the day, but there's just there's no creativity. I could sit there, I could clear a day, I could have everything, primed and prepared and ready, and there's just nothing to give. So that's when, for me, I know, and it's like, right, okay, we need to do an intervention here.
Intervention, does that include anything? I'm going to say the S word, spiritual.
Yes, very.
Yeah?
Very, for me.
Are you spiritual? I mean, would you consider
Wildly.
yourself? Really?
Yeah, very.
What does that look like? What does spirituality look like for you?
Ooh, so there's a lot of crystals in my house.
Oy.
There's full moon rituals, there's new moon rituals, and my daughter knows mummy burns things on lists that get burned. There's, oh gosh, there's all sorts. There's
anything you want to share?
Sure. I mean, I do enjoy the new moon and full moon rituals. I think that's whether you're spooky or spiritual or not. Yeah. I think that's I consider myself quite spooky. Yeah. So I think that's a really nice thing to do. Yeah. You on the new moon. Yeah. Even if just think about it like a habit. So on the new moon, you write a list of the things you wish to bring in, that you wish to manifest.
Okay.
On the full moon, you release. So you let go of things that are maybe not serving you anymore. So one of the things that I always write on that list is any relationships not aligned with my highest good. May they be released.
Relationships that are not aligned with
my highest good.
My highest good.
So I release that, if you will, to the universe, as I would term it. And very, very often, more often than not, the next day I will wake up and there'll be a message or a text with something or someone, like a client falling away, or nearly always.
Really?
And so I know that means that is no longer aligned with my highest good. But I quite like that as a practice, just even as a monthly check-in, what is it this month? And I always take photos of them. So what is it this month that I'm, really focusing on and my energy and I'm going to manifest? And I never have more than like 8 to 10, what are some areas I really want to work on this month? And then what are some things that I really want to let go of? What are things that are just in my path and not serving me?
Mm. Speaking of things that don't serve us, one thing that I not struggle with, but sometimes I grapple with is navigating people's energy. Like, for example, I'm an artist. I like sharing mantra music, but a big part of that is people see me also as a mentor of sort, where they like to look at me and ask me questions about how do you think I should navigate this and that and etc. And I find it very difficult to take on that energy without digesting it and just, moving it to one side so I can keep going. You must take on a lot of energy, a lot of different like thoughts, a lot of different emotions, a lot of different... I mean, some of it must be quite shaking as well.
I actually had an experience, I need to be careful what I say for the client, but I had an experience of someone that came to see me, today is Monday if you were listening, and I had someone come to see me on Friday. And I don't necessarily know what they're coming for when it's trauma work. I know it's going to be something that they need to be released. And again, I mean, when I work with someone, it's no judgment and we go to like the darkest of the dark. But this was something that blew my mind.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, to the core. And the person was just so extraordinary. And thank goodness the work that I did with them has made a massive impact and a big, big, big release. And this is something and it would just torment you for your entire life. And just the most extraordinary person, truly. And so that was on Friday. And then on Saturday night, I had some of the worst nightmares I've had in a very, very long time. And I know why. It was from not anything that they'd done, but it was from the session. And you just can't, as a human person, just shake it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I'd had my daughter on Friday night. So, I'm sort of into parenting, gone from the session, like finished work, if you like, gone from the session into that. And then it was Saturday night. And because when you go through the trauma work that I do, you have to relive the worst moment with that person. Right. And it was just beyond, harrowing. And you have to go into the really minute details so the individual can have a visceral experience of it again, which is obviously very difficult for them. But then doing the EMDR allows them to reprocess that event, and effectively you close the loop, a bit like the shame cycle I said. So we get them to close the loop and they're able to sort of discharge. It doesn't go away, it still happened. I always say, look, I'm so sorry, I wish I could change what happened, but I can't. But what I can change is how you feel about yourself. So I'm able to transform like the limiting belief and the shame, because you take on shame, even from the most hideous trauma. And I'm able to remove that, how they feel about themselves, and able to look upon it. It's a bit like being one step removed, whereas before you live it every day. Yeah. So you're just able to get a bit of distance, which gives you some peace. So I feel incredibly blessed that I'm able to do it. I feel like it's the best thing that I've been able to learn and do, and to be able to help someone in that way is incredible. But oh my goodness, Saturday night, it was, yeah.
What do you do to kind of process? How did you, I mean, it seems like it's there.
Yeah, no, definitely it's there still. I mean, obviously it was in my subconscious because it was a dream. So it came out in my nightmares. And I'm also very aware that it's not a bad thing to have nightmares. Nightmares are sort of your, things that have been blocked in your energy that needed to come out. And that just clearly needed to be let out. And also there were things that resonated. I grew up in a household of violence. My father was very violent towards me as a child, and my mother colluded. And a lot of the collusion was actually the worst part for me. So, and this story, it was much worse, if you like. Not that it's like, you don't get to win the trauma games, but there was a lot of collusion. And again, there were times that people were there and no one did anything. And the client was saying to me, no one came to save me. No one saved me. And that resonated a lot because people definitely did know. Yeah. And in my situation as well, I don't know always, but I think some people did know. And
you mean in your wider family?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I think it would have been. I mean, yeah, I remember one day being in a restaurant. My father punched me in the face. I was about my daughter's age. I was 7. There's blood running down my face. The people were there. I remember seeing people in the room.
The reactions.
Yeah, and I can clearly remember that people were sort of trying to show how to stop a nosebleed. One family were like putting in, all the tips and advice, and someone was giving me ice. And my mother hadn't been there. It was on a holiday. My mother hadn't been there. We got back to the apartment and I could see them both looking like, gone a bit far this time. And I could see them looking to one another, and it was the collusion. And then they both sort of laughed and went, "Oh, well, you did say you'd never had a nosebleed before," because boys at school were beginning to have nosebleeds about that age. And it was as if they'd given me like a puppy for Christmas. And I can remember being so confused because I'm thinking, this really isn't right.
Right.
And I'd seen people's reactions in the restaurant, and I don't know if people had seen what had happened, but they'd seen the after effect. And I knew it was so wrong, but yet I'm told that I was bad, I'd made him do it. And then this like, well, you did say you'd never had a nosebleed, like, got your chocolate bar. It's just, it's the collusion. That's the worst part for me. So, and I think, the resonance of this story, the event from that I treated on Friday, definitely triggered. It was the collusion as well in that example.
Thank you so much for being so open, honest, and vulnerable.
Happy.
And yeah. I think those who have had the deepest and darkest experiences of life, I mean, there's that famous saying, right? We learn more from rock bottom than mountaintops. I think your experiences in life have given you the infinite, well, not infinite, but a wider capacity for compassion and to take on that energy. And I think, I wasn't harmed as a child, and I wasn't, I was given a very, very loving upbringing, but I think the culture from which I come from meant that I was never told I was good at stuff. It's just a kind of, I guess it's a cultural thing. As a lot of people from an Indian background do experience that even if you get an A, why don't you get A+? And even when you do get A+, it's expected.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, you're either going to be a doctor, an engineer, or a failure. One of the three. There's nothing in between. And so that has kind of helped me, not helped me, but it is, in one sense, it's helping me to serve in a way that I overcompensate. And I'm always keeping the door open, always trying to help people, always trying to serve people. Even when I'm doing it, I still feel I can do better. And so I think that those experiences, even though they're the most heart-wrenching experiences, like even just hearing that story from you, it made my heart drop. That kind of does help me to understand how you're able to function at such a high performance and keep the space for so many people. And I think it's kind of a reminder for everyone that's going through something right now that, yes, when you're going through it, and you can correct me if you think that there's an addition to this, or if you think I've got the concept wrong. Yes, we're going through things which right now may not feel joyous. Like there may be really frustrating moments in life, but I think that those experiences may not be answerable to why are they happening to me in the moment. In the moment, we may not be able to logically understand why this is happening to me, but in the future, it will help me to be informed of what is this teaching me, and be able to then resonate with other people that are going through that. I think, I don't believe in chance, for example. I think everything happens for a reason, and every experience helps us to navigate either our own lives or help others navigate theirs. And so, I'm just deeply appreciative that you shared that with us. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. But I just want people to know that there is a possibility of it being changed. And thank you for saying what you did. I think I probably couldn't be with some of the things that people talk about had I not have been through it myself. And I think it does give some permission. When I was with this client on Friday and I shared a bit more about myself and some of the feelings, and it was so resonant, and that obviously adds a layer of safety. And we're about to go into something so, devilish, frankly, and that's just impermeating every part of their life. And I think we needed that partnership together. So I do think it grants some permission and just allows us to go that level deeper. But I don't know if it's amazing or not. It's incredible how many people, incredibly successful people, but everybody has had it's this shame again. There's been some element of shame they've taken on, whether it's, this extreme, the client Friday, but other people as well. There's a lot of people trying to figure it out yourself as well, sort of maybe not being given the rewards or the, celebrating sort of what you do. So then you're just like grinding because it's never good enough. But it's interesting as well what you said about, over giving or over sharing, because quite recently, but I now get like an almost energetic hangover from certain people, or almost it's like the word isn't very nice, but it's like a repulsion. There's just something I just can't. It's like two magnets pulling apart. And I just know so quickly now that I just can't give here. And it doesn't mean that anyone's bad, doesn't mean that I'm wrong or bad, but there's people and places that I can and I will and I do. And that includes like my very close sort of network of my personal life as well that I keep very private. And then outside of that, there are people that I want to be able to impact doing what I do. And then I've got really okay with the fact that I just cannot.
Discernment of where you should and shouldn't give kind of thing. Okay.
But honestly, it's like energetic now. It's just, I literally can't.
You can just tell like immediately kind of thing?
Well, yeah, I had a client call through, very, very, very successful client, wanted to do some private coaching with me. And within about half an hour, I was like, I just can't. I can't.
Really?
There's no way I'm going to be able to work with you. You know, it would have been very well paying. It would have been, you know, all the nice stuff, like ticked off the mortgage for a few months. But I was like, I just can't. I'm not going to do that.
Wow. Intuitively.
Honestly, at the end of the call, my energy was through the floor. Like through the floor.
Energy vampire.
Literally. So, and nothing to do with that person, but that's just been something that I kind of can't avoid. And that would push me into burnout. And if I was, that would be the kind of thing that I'd be so depleted. And then I'm trying to give to, say, my daughter or, you know, like the finite rest of my life. It wouldn't work.
Have you like navigated or have you kind of become aware of the steps that are required to build that intuition? Because I think for me that's interesting. I think some people in the room right now, I think that's interesting. How to know when to say yes and how to know when to say no. I mean, it's amazing that you've got this amazing intuition to just go half an hour call and just going, okay, energy's depleted. I'm not going to do that.
I mean,
but I think some of us do go, my energy's depleted, but it's such a good opportunity.
So I would say the big thing that, and I talk about this quite a lot. So people, if they've seen some of my work, is being really clear about whether they think this is something that you should do or whether this is something you want to do. And they're very, very, very different. So shoulds is the territory of the inner critic.
Okay.
Should. So we've all got a massive pile of shoulds, right? So I should go to the gym 4 times this week. I should write those posts and be hilarious and creative. I should have got my hair done before I came here. I should have done this. You know, I should get back in time for my daughter. Thanks, babe. Like, thank you. But, you know, there's all these shoulds. Like, I should get to that. I should get back to that person. I should. So I've got this huge pile of shoulds. And when I think about the pile of shoulds, I think, ugh. And then I think about some things that I really want to do. And I think, I really want to do some more work on this piece of writing I was doing this weekend. I really want to spend time with certain individuals that, you know, I'm really looking forward to connecting with them. Or I really want to experience something like a hobby or whatever. Like, I really want to do that. I really want to do that class or that workout. I really want to do that. And when I think about those things, I think, yeah, you know, like my energy is totally different. Like, yes, I really want that. And there's a massive, massive difference. But the shoulding is the inner critic, is the people pleasing, is the, you know, I'll say yes to everyone. Oh, you better do that because what if you don't? Then they might not come and ask you again. Then you won't be popular. Then they won't come and listen to you. Then they'll go to the other people. Inner critic. So if you've got shoulding going on, firstly, it's the inner critic. And secondly, that is probably very depleting to think about them and then have a really good investigation as to whether that is actually what you want.
You got any spots that I can hire? You got any free spots? Incredible. I mean, I'm just thinking about this from my own personal perspective, and maybe I need to sit down with a piece of paper and write shoulds and wants. It's
a really good exercise.
Yeah.
It's genuinely a really good exercise. There's, this is not a sales pitch, but there is an inner critic masterclass on my website where you get to actually meet your inner critic. It's really cool. So it's something I designed and I've done it for years, and I do it with all of my top clients. And so, you know, we've had this voice in our heads, right, for almost as long as you can remember, probably. Oh, be a good boy, or do this, or you better work harder at school, you should do this, should do that, should do that, should do this. So we've all been living with this kind of weird roommate, this shoulding roommate, you know, for like especially the Sunday nights, shut up, like, you know, like the Sunday night dread for years, but yet we don't really know them. And we assume it's just like this negativity or something. And I don't really buy into that. I've got quite a different sort of take on this. So in my view, your inner critic is a well-meaning friend that is just a bit unskillful. They've got it a bit wrong. And what they're trying desperately to do is to keep you safe. And they're doing it the only way they know how. The only way they can guarantee success, which is keeping you locked in your comfort zone. So why is it the inner critic kicks off when you're about to do something new? because it can't guarantee your success.
Yeah, there's no security.
Right, because we're out of the known, we're out of our comfort zone. So anytime you're going to do something bold or courageous or, I don't know, perform something new for the first time, or, we get really like, oh, I'm going to write something and put something out there that's a bit more edgy or, maybe more authentic, or having the kind of conversations that we're having, and, mums at school are going to see it or something like that. You can be a bit like... And Brene Brown calls it the vulnerability hangover. So you can get a bit like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. But yeah, the inner critic is just desperately trying to hang on to keep you safe and keep you in the comfort zone and keep you in the known. So it's actually doing a pretty good job when you think about it. It's doing its little job very well. But in this experience, you go into meeting them and they're out in front of you. And that's amazing. I've had superheroes, a lot of parents, as you can imagine. A lot of your parents are there, like versions of you, body parts, all sorts of things. I've had the inner critic for people in front of them and coming through this masterclass. But you go into conversation with the inner critic and you find out what it's trying to protect you from and what it needs for you to do to allow it to lower its guard. And it's really beautiful. And by the end of it, what happens is it's your biggest cheerleader. And then you're going around life with it cheering you on rather than holding you back every time. And it's got wisdom. We've lived with this thing for a really long time. So the wisdom in that inner critic. And when you start championing and working together, it's really cool.
Wow. Leaning away from security. Wow. That's a practice. I mean, that's something that's going to take months for me to develop, but I have an aspiration for it. That sounds really cool. Being brave to lean away from security. Any tips on that?
Well, the first thing that came into my head was leaving my marriage. So, that's leaning away from security. And any tips for that? I mean, for me, it was the view that... very nice lifestyle and all that, secure, completely secure. Yeah. And so to take a step away from that.
This is prior to your coaching kicking off?
No, I was coaching already, but it was just, it was no one's fault, like nothing. It was just death by 1,000 cuts and it needed to finish so that we could have a good relationship. It was, if it went on any longer, I think that we wouldn't have been able to maintain the relationship we do have. And I'm very grateful for that. But it was my decision. And so leaving that security, leaving that container, if you like, and truly stepping out into the unknown was huge. And it was so anxiety wrecking. So for anyone listening to this, whether it's a relationship, a job, friendship, maybe a family system, whatever it is they might be leaning out of and stepping out of security, you've got to be the anchor in your own harbour. I had to learn how to become the anchor in my own harbour.
I like that.
No matter the storm. So there's practices that I might do. And there were times it was very, very hard because no one could predict. But my husband and I broke off in October 2019. Lockdown.
Wow.
So I was doing a divorce, single parenting, homeschooling, no parents, obviously, due to and all on lockdown. Oh yeah. So I don't think I actually really had experienced anxiety before until then. And it was next level. And so you just get to stripping the engine, which is with burnout as well. You just got to strip the engine. Like, what can I get rid of? And what are the core fundamentals that I can control? Because I just felt so out of control. And that was where the anxiety came from. So I can control what food I eat. I can try and control, the sleep that I get. I meditated every day. I moved my body in some way every day. Found moments of joy. Even if it was just us going out.
Kept that anchor. I
kept the anchor, and I got rid of everything else. So, and sometimes you have to do that. And you might feel selfish, but I had to. I had to become that bastion myself.
I mean, there's someone I just had a conversation with yesterday, and they're going through a period where they basically feel like they're constantly in glass boxes, working hours that are ridiculous and always expected to be smiley and presentable and etc. And they're trying to figure out life. And I think that this anchor analogy is so good. Like, bring it back to the necessities, bring it back to the... How did you say it? I'm sorry? Yeah,
just the core... it was foundations was how I looked at it. It was like, I've just... probably this person as well, you just feel so out of control. And I was like, what can I could control who I spoke to?
Right.
So again, even though it was lockdown, we weren't really interacting, but the phones and WhatsApp groups and Zoom parties, all the fun stuff.
All the time.
But you can control who I was allowing any access to or energy, social media use, like all of it. And actually that's where I started my Instagram from as well. Yeah, that's when I started it.
Wow.
Because I could see, I felt very low and I could see people selling things like, I'll cure your anxiety for $99. And I was like, that's really wrong.
Yeah.
And that's naughty. And then also the people that do not get cured for one video that you've sold them for $99 are going to feel even worse about themselves because they're like, well, I can't even do that well. So I decided to start my Instagram feed just putting out any bits of advice that I know work from my work in performance and therapy and everything else, and just recommending a free podcast, a book that on a Kindle is 99p or whatever, so just trying to put out things that I knew actually worked, and that was where it started from. And in that was also just, I guess, something for myself. I was healing as I was doing it.
This conversation has been flipping epic.
Thank you.
I've learned so much from you. I think you're really clear thought. I mean, how do I say it? Your clarity of thought is there. You've got really good step processes. I mean, in one sense you expect it from a coach, but in another sense it's just very refreshing and very. I deal with a lot of people, or speak with a lot of people in this conversation that have a lot of wisdom, but don't sometimes know how to formulate that wisdom into a way that's practical. I think you're a really practical person. I really enjoy this. This conversation, by the way, I think every single person that's been here with us up until now should find that this is something you re-listen to. I think there's a lot of like small moments on. I mean, I don't want to summarize the whole combo, but I think there's many moments here that I think people will take away that will holistically improve your week. And so, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Quick fire?
Sure.
You up for it?
I love stuff like this.
Okay, wicked. Me too. Question number 1. What's something that you're curious about right now in your life?
Ooh. What's something I'm curious about right now? I read a really interesting book last week. I was in Ibiza with a friend, and it's called 4,000 Weeks. I don't know if you've read it.
No.
Oliver Berkman. That's basically if you live until 80, that's how many weeks you've got on Earth.
Say that again.
Yeah, if you live until you're 80.
How many weeks?
4,000.
It's not many weeks, is it?
Right. So I'm 42. So in theory, I've got like 2,000 left. Right. So it kind of blew my mind. So I'm very and it's very good. It's like time management and prioritizing. So I'm very curious about this concept at the moment and kind of how do I want to best spend my weeks and what's important to me and kind of redesigning how I work a little bit around that. So yeah, it's a really good book.
Just the title's throwing me.
Right.
For 4,000 weeks. Oh, crap.
Quick fire, and I've flattened you.
Yeah, I'm done.
But it's a really good read. It's a quick read as well. But that concept is something I'm sort of want to play with and maybe bring into my work. That's where the curiosity is with it at the moment. Is
That's
how
incredible.
The concept is that we've all have this sense of existentialism because we have this underlying knowing that it's 4,000 weeks, and so therefore because we're not here for 200,000 weeks, you can't have 4 different relationships and one with kids and one without. So basically, it's the pressure to get things right.
Wow.
So that's where this is coming from. So I'm like, okay, well, if I've got
You could have a whole
2,000
angle on that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Right.
So these 2,000 weeks that, I actually think I'll have more. I'm very healthy and happy. But anyway, like, what do I want in those weeks and what do I not want? That's where I'm curious right now.
I'm curious now. What's something that you're personally working through at the moment?
So my daughter is about to change school to a bigger school.
She's 7, you mentioned.
She is, yeah. So she's moving up, which is great. Her last school was just idyllic, and it was sort of went from 2 to 7. There's bunny rabbits and chickens. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's lovely. But she's about to go to a much bigger school with bigger children. And I went to like a summer fair with them, and there were 2 of them holding hands, and they had makeup on, and I was like, oh, you're my baby, So
how old were they?
I don't know, but I was. They go. Obviously, it's just bigger ages. So I feel like this is something at the moment I'm very aware of. I think there's some chapters changing and closing, and she's so ready, and it's going to be so great for her. But there's going to be obviously exposure and new things and some shifts for me and her as well. So that's.
I was told that children consider their parents their best friends up until the age of 5.
Yeah.
And then they start having friends around. I've started quantifying it because my child is 3 years old. He's got 2 years of calling Papa his best friend. And then will he even know me after that? Because I remember the moments where I was like, no, I want my friends around. We're going to do sleepovers. I'm like, Mom, get out. Like, I don't want that to end. Like, I'm really cherishing the moments right now.
So you see, I sort of know, I guess, we can look on it and I know that she's going to just be exposed, which is the right thing. But things like Santa, and there's going to be lots of stuff and lots of like, things that are going to be different, and it's the right time, but there's going to be, Mummy's going to find it harder.
Yes, straight up.
It's going to be hard for me.
I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah.
My little girl. Anyway, number 3, in short, what legacy would you like to leave behind in this world? I mean, it's hard to do that in short.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I could, that people that heard anything that I said had less shame. If something that I said resonated and just lifted a bit of shame away from them, that would be amazing.
May it be. Wow. Number 4, something you used to deeply value, just don't value as much anymore.
Ooh. What do I not value as much anymore? Like, I don't really know how to phrase it, but sort of like the busyness of like just kind of being everywhere and doing it, you know, but like being on the scene with everything. I've got a little bit more, not necessarily habitual, but I don't need to be as out there. So, and that's how I'd phrase it. So I've got a lot more private and sort of close with my personal life, and the sort of periphery, let's do this coffee, no.
I think a lot of people are looking for that.
Yeah.
Because I think 20s and 30s are kind of the years where you've got to make things happen. And it means you're always busy, always grinding, exactly. I think that's something I am kind of starting to crave it a little bit. But I'm like, no, later. But I would like to learn how to do that more. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, something you don't value as much anymore. And the last one, if you could create one law everyone had to follow, what would it be?
Oh, I mean, if you could create a law and just being... So one of my best friends, am I allowed to swear a little bit?
Of course.
Okay, so...
Hold on to your seatbelts.
So it's not a big swear. So there is one rule for life,
okay,
and that we must all obey in the girls group and for other people. Don't be a dick. Like, don't be a dick. That includes yourself. So if somebody else is being a dick, it's not hard. Don't be a dick. It's really not hard. Like, and equally check in with yourself. I'm being a bit of a dick. Like,
I wish we could call this whole podcast that.
Yeah, don't be a dick. No, but it's like, just don't be a dick. It's not difficult. Yeah. You know, manage
everyone
yourself.
knows when they're being
right.
Yeah.
Don't be a dick.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Annalie. It's been a wonderful pleasure just speaking with you, and genuinely, like, I really have enjoyed your clarity of thought, the way in which you've kind of laid things out, mapped things out. And I think this is a conversation I'm going to listen to personally again, because I think there's many moments that are personal to me that I'm working through right now in my life. And so, yeah, I can only say I'm deeply grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I've loved it.
See you guys on the next episode of For Soul's Sake, and give this a share. Drop a like, drop a comment, share it with a friend. You know, all the things on social media that are required to get this conversation wider out there. If you love any of Annalie's conversation parts here, then go and check out her Instagram. Go and check out all the stuff she's doing. Her coaching courses, masterclasses.
Yeah, there's masterclasses. Got YouTube launch as well, with much longer form. It's great. There's a lot of explanation in there too. So yeah, come
check it out. See you guys on the next one. For Soul's Sake.
For soul's sake, for soul's